Welcome, welcome. My name is Rose Stein. I'm the founder of this community. So, welcome to the Button the Jeans community, where we talk about all things related to health and body and wellness. Any of that drama and trauma around food and weight loss and our energy and our vitality and the way that our clothes fit. It's a wonderful community. So, welcome, welcome. So, on Tuesdays, I bring to you a little power lesson, something that is helpful and meaningful, hopefully, to you in your life. Take what you want, leave the rest. Please, 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 if you have any questions or comments, or you have any particular topics that you would like me to cover, then go ahead and reach out. Leave a comment below. Let me know what your thinking is around this. You are part of this community, and I officially and humbly welcome you. And I am so glad that you are here. So today we're going to be talking about, and actually all week, we've been talking about different aspects of mindset. Now, in my program, we talk about this for an entire week in my program as well. We don't even really necessarily talk about specifics about food and what to do and what not to do. There's a lot of information out there. There's a lot of great ideas. And yet the difference between the people that are successful long term, which I think is what we all want, right? I mean, if we wanted short-term success, there's a million ways to do that. And I'm sure that you've already done that several times. What we really want, what I know that I really want, what my clients really want, what I'm assuming that you want, is to make whatever shift, whatever needs to happen to create the stability for that to happen so that we don't ever have to do this again. Right? So that we can just maintain that healthy body and that calm mind and be able to weather whatever storms come, because that's life, right? And not be so swept away with it that then we have to rebuild again and again. It's exhausting. So, mindset is the number one, right? It's the alpha and the omega. It's the beginning and the end. Our mindset is really going to create an experience and a reality that is going to allow us to move forward with those healthy habits long term and allow it to go from kind of like that diet mentality and needing to like muster up willpower and like control everything like this, to it actually just being part of our life and what we do and how we see ourselves and how we respond to life. So let's talk a little bit more in detail about what exactly I mean by that. And if you notice that your mindset is off or not serving you in whatever way, if you find yourself continuing to self-sabotage, you run into resistance, and then there's that failure mechanism that creeps up. Let's talk about that. Let's get into exactly how to change that and transform that in a loving and compassionate and powerful way that's also simple and easy, right? All of those things, all of those things. Okay, so let's get into it. I'm going to share my screen so that actually, let's go to the other screen so that I can put it in presentation mode. Perfect. And boom, that should be it. So I'm just going to cruise over and make sure that that's all good. And we are in the group and in the group. So technology is fun. And I just want to make sure that we are okay. Cool. Looks good from this side. So we will carry on. I'm just going to move my little face over there. Cool. All right. So mindset, ladies. Yes. What is it? How does it happen? How do we make some changes if we want to make some changes so that we can have both our mind and our body on the same page, which is so freeing? Okay, so like the definition of mindset, it's an established set of attitudes held by somebody. So the noun mindset was first used in the 1930s to mean habits of mind formed by previous experience. So we have some kind of input from our six senses, right? Like as we are growing, we see and hear and touch and smell and feel the world, right? So we got internal stuff going on, we got external stuff going on, and we get an opportunity to interpret that data and make some meaning from it. Now, it's very common for people to generalize and make assumptions about meaning that later get changed or updated based on new information. That is the process of the mind. It's a muscle. It's constantly has an ability to change and to grow and to expand and create new connections of understanding based on a continuation of inputs. At some point, we do have the ability, though, to, like as a kid, we have to just accept everything, right? There's not what's called the critical factor, which is kind of like what I call it the bullshit meter, right? Where we begin to form an understanding of ourselves and our relationship to the world around us, when we begin to build the walls, right? Like a 4-year-old doesn't really have a lot of walls built up, but a 40-year-old sure does. I think we can all have that experience. So a child, for instance, it's super common for a child when they learn the word dog, they often make an assumption that any like medium-sized animal with 4 legs is a dog. And for a little while, you'll see them call, oh, dog, 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 like to, to a cat and to like other animals. And then you correct them and you give them new information and new words, and their brain begins to build new neural synapses, and they create new understandings. As they build their understanding of differences, they change their mindset, their view. So my son growing up, he's met his father like a couple of times. He never really had a dad, but he often heard adult men referred to as dad. Like anytime there was an adult man around, there was someone calling that person dad, whether it was his cousins or his friends, right? And so he learned at a very young age to refer to all men as dad until he learned new information. I'll tell you, that was certainly fun. That was a good time. He'd be like, all right, thanks, dad. I just shake my head. He's joking. Okay. So this is what happens. We have, it's kind of like a circuit. There's a flow of information that begins to happen. So we have some input from the world, and it's a thought, and then a chemical response is then created in response to that thought, right? And there are little connections inside the brain, and it does certain things. And this is just an example of like what happens when you are feeling okay and good. There's a lot of activity inside of the brain, and you feel great. There's chemicals that are being released, and you're kind of in the flow and in the energy of life. And when we are depressed, you can see here just in these scans that there's not as much activity. There's not as much activity inside the neuron connections, and you can see it actually inside the brain. You know, what's interesting actually about emotions is that there's one thing that all negative emotions have in common. It's the restriction of the breath. We tend to, and that's why it's called depressed, right? It's not an expression, it's a depression where things go in, they go down, they slow down, and there's not enough activity to really experience the vigor and the vitality of life. So we have a thought, it creates a chemical response, and then we feel it in the body. Then the body, right, now that it's got all these chemicals either flowing or not flowing through it, there is a physical feeling that is a response to those thoughts. And then there is, and this is where we really get into trouble sometimes, there is an interpretation. There's a meaning then that is placed on that feeling in the body by the mind. And that's how we get an emotion. And it's really easy to get stuck in this cycle of thinking and feeling and feeling and thinking and thinking and feeling and being caught up in our emotions. And it makes it really challenging to take on new information at that point when we're in that cycle. And what happens is that we end up getting frustrated, and it's kind of like we're talking specifically about our health and our weight and our food choices. It can sometimes feel when we're trying to make a change on our own, even actually sometimes when we have support and help, it can sometimes feel as if we're trying to hold on to water in our two bare hands, and we're so thirsty and we need to drink that, but we just can't get enough. And when we have this experience of compassion and new ideas, somebody else that holds our hand and can hold us up, we begin to feel supported. And that creates a sense of relaxation. Our shoulders begin to relax a little bit. Our heart begins to open a little bit. We breathe a little bit deeper. There's a little bit more space now between the thought and the feeling and the action, then that creates our experience of our life. So when we have that type of community, which is why I'm so blessed and so grateful that you are here, it's important that we know that we are not alone, that there is movement and there is a process, that there is a solution, that we're not just stuck in our same old feelings and emotions, thinking and feeling and continuing to get the same old responses. One of the things that is the most important that I have found for myself and for my clients is to really realize the depth of this statement right here, that it's not personal. It sure feels personal, but when we're thinking about mindset, it's like, can a mindset be changed? Now, in different situations, I mean, the good news is that we do have a choice. That mindsets they're just beliefs. They're powerful beliefs, but they're just something in your mind. A mindset is not you, right? A mindset continues to, if you allow it to be and you want it to be, it can continue to be added on to be changed, to be transformed. You can change your mind based on new information. I mean, imagine that kid that thought that all four-legged, medium-sized animals are all dogs. Like that is true in one circumstance, an area of life. A dog is a dog, and it is usually a medium-sized animal with four legs, but that's not the whole story. And oftentimes we get stuck in a loop, believing and thinking and thinking and believing, when really we don't have enough information. We don't have the whole story. So it's how we look at things. Our mindset is an expression of a belief that we've embraced. So this is part of the key. You have to realize that your mindset is really an expression of a belief. Now you know how to change your mindset. You change your mindset by embracing a new belief. Well, how do we do that? Well, we need new information. How do we get new information? Well, we got to surround ourselves with people. We got to start to ask some questions and have a new experience, step outside of our comfort zone. So in terms of taking back control, Albert Einstein, I think, said it best when it's talking about mindset and shifting our mindset and how to actually get out of a loop of thinking. He says, without changing our patterns of thought, we will not be able to solve the problems that we created with our current patterns of thought. Now, of course, in a moment, I'm going to tell you a way that you can do that, a very powerful and simple way that we don't have to change who we are, right? We don't have to change everything about ourselves. It's one small little shift that allows us the opportunity to open up to new possibilities. The possibility to live life in this body that you've been given, can be vibrant and alive and feel good. What you want to do, what you are doing, and what allows you to feel your best are actually in alignment, that they are in the same energy and giving you that vitality. So this is kind of the thing, and where often a lot of us can end up getting stuck and frustrated. I mean, the reality is that if we have a changed mindset, we're going to get a different result. So what happens is that and this is in terms of dieting, right? So we're just going to take this one example, although anything that's true is true in many areas of life. This one is just specific to body weight, feeling in control of our food and feeling at peace with that and having the body and lifestyle that we desire. So first we have like, we see some new diet, right? Like let's say it's South Beach. That was like the cool rage for a long time. And there's high expectations, right? You're like, okay, I can do it. I see all these pictures. There's a plan. All right, I'm going to do it. Totally, this is going to be great. And you start to do it and you realize that there are maybe some blocks along the way, some triggers, that it's not really as simple as maybe you had thought or wanted it to be. I've done that many times. 6 times I gained and lost the same 50 pounds. I mean, that's hundreds of pounds. So many times I was like, all right, I'm gonna go, and not gonna quit until I lose this weight. I'm gonna stay focused. And I try to like muster up the willpower for an entire year, like in 1 minute, right? Like I would wait to be that motivated to make all of the changes that I needed to make. And then I realized, well, that life happens when I'm busy making other plans, and it becomes hard. And then we move into what we call despair, right? It's like the valley of despair, where it's hard. And then that same old thinking, right? Now, if our pattern of thought has been to quit at this point, then what we do is we end up quitting. Now, if we have a new thought, if we allow some new information, if we persevere through this valley of despair, then we come up and it's, yes, it's hard, and I can do it. Yes, it's hard, and I'm going to do it anyway. No, I don't want to do it. I'm going to show up for that coaching call anyway. That is the difference. It is a small difference. It's the yes and then we come up, and even though it's challenging and it's difficult and we don't like it, we continue those habits and patterns of thought, building upon them, not changing them, not completely erasing any part of ourselves. That's not possible. We will always have those memories. We will always have those thoughts, and they can begin to transform. They begin to grow into something new, into something different based on new information. And then we get to that light at the end of the tunnel. But what most of us do is that we think that we can do it on our own. We think that we can just think ourselves into getting past this valley of despair. I suppose some of us can. Personally, I needed help. I needed support. I needed guidance. I needed somebody else's voice to give me some new information when I was stuck in that cycle of thinking and feeling and feeling and thinking, this a barrage of emotion that kept me stuck in the same old habits. So what happens is that oftentimes people come in, they've got these high expectations, they realize that it's challenging, boom, they quit because it's painful. It is painful to be in the valley of despair. And when we quit, it relieves the pain. It's not because we're crazy. Again, it's not personal. There's nothing wrong with us. Nobody likes to be in this kind of emotional pain. And most people will do just about anything to get out of that pain. And quitting seems like the right choice at the time to relieve the pain. So then we quit and we realize that, wow, this is very uncomfortable. Now I quit and I feel better for a little while. And then I'm back to that place of where, oh my gosh, I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to live like this anymore. I'm not willing to experience the consequences anymore. What do I do? Boom. Oh, the keto diet. Oh, there it is. High expectations. We start doing it. Boom. Realization. This is pretty tough. Boom. Back into the valley of despair. And we want to relieve that pain. So this is my tip and my trick for today. It is simple and yet powerful. It is a yes, it's an acknowledgement and awareness. It's not a, well, don't be upset, don't be frustrated, don't think like that. Just it's not about willpowering yourself through it. It's about acknowledging and accepting that it's challenging. It's uncomfortable to make a change. It's quite easy to stay in that loop. And I'm going to do it anyway. And I'm going to get up anyway. And I'm going to ask for help, even though I'm scared and it's uncomfortable. It's the yes. And I'm going to keep going, even though I don't know what's on the other side. So Viktor Frankl really, I think, said it best. He said, between stimulus, which is what we were talking about, it's the information from either the outside world or an internal thing, and our response, there is a space. Now, in that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom. I love that. I love that word freedom, because that is something that I really only dreamt of for so long. I didn't know how to live outside of either controlling or indulging or controlling. It was always one or the other. I thought that those were my only options. I didn't realize that there's actually a space between the control and the indulgence. There's a space between that I can only nurture in the moment. I can't have it yesterday, and I don't know what the heck's going to happen tomorrow. The only place that I have that freedom and that space is in practicing being present in this moment. And that used to be so terrifying for me. I didn't know what to do or how to do that. But little by little, practicing that yes, so it's an acknowledgement of the two opposing sides, and I'm going to move through that anyway. And of course, I have certainly found that what has brought me the most comfort is by having a group, right? A group like this, a support group, a coach. I had a couple of coaches in my life. Having a health coach is one of the most wonderful things ever, because we get to then externalize our thoughts and what's going on, and then get some new information back, and it begins to change and shift, and that space between begins to expand, and we have more control and more power, more peace. So what we want to do is we want to begin to build, right? Building those long-term habits of thought and the action so that it can become automatic, right? I don't want to have to muster up the willpower every time I want to lose a couple pounds, or after every holiday, or after every weekend, or whatever that is. So, or even after the diet, right? So really what's important is beginning to create those habits of thought that are ones that I want to also have in a year from now and 5 years from now. And what happens is that when we're talking about the subconscious mind, a lot of people are like, well, the subconscious mind, it's built in there. It's all of your habits and thoughts and beliefs, and like no one can change that. Well, I don't believe that. I don't believe that at all. I do believe that we're not going to change into something different in terms of wiping it all clean and be a different person. But what happens, just like the mind being a muscle, our subconscious, it can be added to, right? Like we're not the same person we were at 3 or 7 or 12 or 21. We have built upon ourselves every year, every experience. You have more knowledge and more wisdom and more experience than you ever have. Like today is the best day because you have more than you've ever had before. And every day there's new opportunities to add to the structure, to add to the foundation, to add to your knowledge and wisdom and experience. There is an opportunity to have a bigger and bolder and brighter subconscious mind than you ever have before. And how wonderful that is. Okay, so I'm going to pop back into the group and see if there are any questions that anybody has had so far. Okay, cool. So I don't see any questions. I would like to just remind you how amazing and wonderful you are. And I know that it sometimes can feel super personal if we're feeling stuck and frustrated, but just remember that's just a pattern of emotion and thought that we've got stuck into. And there is another way. So begin to use that tool, that trick, that technique. It's a simple word. It's an acknowledgement of what is, and an acknowledgement that we are going to continue to move forward regardless. It's yes and that gets us out of that loop and allows the creative part of our mind to be expressed, right? It's like, okay, well, yeah, and what? Right? Yes, and what? And so we begin to use that power of our creativity to think of what would that next step be? What does my healthy, vibrant, alive at her natural and ideal weight, feeling really good, not obsessed about food self would do in this situation. And so it allows us to expand our understanding and our knowledge of ourselves. Okay, you are so amazing. I adore you. I love you. And I will see you later. Bye.